Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your host, Mike the Podfather, and Jersey Ed as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders, from physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance. We leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call. Welcome to another episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast, sponsored by Genesis House and produced by Sweets Productions in Beverly, Mass. And now, here are your hosts, the Podfather, Mike Miles, and Jersey Ed.
Hey, thank you, Sweets. And as always, we are happy to be here, ready and available to help our first responders out there across the country and abroad.
That's right, Mike. I love learning about all the new topics that we bring up, and I know our listeners do too. I can tell by all the social media chatter and everything that goes on Facebook and emails and everything like that. So,
awesome.
Well, welcome to another show.
Here we are,
right?
Boy, Sweet Studio. What a
Sweet
fabulous
studio
place.
It is. It's growing and getting better and
For the
looking really good.
Sure, for the listeners out there, it's a beautiful fall day, and sun's out. It's nice and cool, and we have a nice fire going. This is heaven, man.
It is. It's a good studio. I'm happy we're here. Very comfortable. Again, we smoke cigars on the show, so for you folks out there who have your cigars, light them up, and let's start this show. I want to start the show off by congratulating you, Mike.
Congratulating me.
Yes, because I didn't congratulate you a few weeks ago, almost a month ago now, because of your anniversary.
The 17th of October.
Yes. So
right.
we're about a month past that.
That's
now.
correct. That's correct.
So I want to congratulate you on that, and I also I got a gift for you.
You did,
but it's for the first responders also.
Okay.
So I would like for you to keep it here.
All right.
And just so the first responders can see this, I thought this was a great idea. I was with our friend today, Vivian.
Oh, yeah.
Over at the diocese,
right.
Archdiocese of Boston.
Yeah, wonderful lady.
And I went past the little gift store.
Okay.
And I came across this. This is St. Michael.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm opening up a little package here. It's St. Michael, the Archangel,
yep.
and he's the
Saint of police
officers and all first responders. So
that's correct.
That's for you, but I would like to
Thank
give
you.
that to our listeners too, and maybe we can just keep it here.
We will.
And it's not a religious show, but it's I know Mike and I grew up Catholic, and we like we talk about saying our prayers and all that.
Certainly.
I thought this would be perfect for you. So
Well,
that's yours, but it's for the listeners too.
I'll just say, for my 35-year police career, especially 28 years on the street, I wore a St. Michael's medal. My mother bought for me when I graduated from the police academy.
Yeah.
I made it, so something must be working there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and hopefully I had some statistics I was reading with some police officers, and we'll get that into further shows about some of the unfortunate numbers that are out there, and you're one of the ones that did
Right.
make it out and were able to retire and everything. So the gentleman that we have on today, we're not going to introduce him yet, but I want to just go over a couple things. I heard him on a podcast called Rescuing the Rescuers.
Right.
And I think you listened to that too.
I did.
I sent it over to you. And that was it was how we ended up finding him. But for some of our listeners out there, this is not our podcast is different from a lot of other podcasts. And what I want to do is just recognize some of the first responders podcasts out there, if you're okay with that.
100%.
So a few of them that I listen to, besides Answering the Call, is the number one that I listen to. Well, hold on. Before we get into that, we didn't even introduce Sweets. I mean, what's that all about?
Well, there he is. The Sweets is the man, the legend, the guy behind the scenes who has the studio looking like, I can't believe it.
I know.
We've tried to destroy it earlier. I knocked over a $1,000 microphone.
Destroying my equipment.
Sweets is a big man. I'm a little nervous. Sweets, welcome Thanks for having us.
Yeah, how you doing?
Absolutely.
How you
Things are
doing today?
fantastic. Do you like your new table?
Oh,
We
I
love it. We love it.
New,
Yeah.
new microphones.
New mic
new
stands, new
microphones,
table,
fans.
more room. Yep.
It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It looks good. All right. Send us some emails. Let us know. I get emails from everybody. Let us know how it is. And not right now, Sweets. Don't send me one yet.
Oh, okay. I was just about to send you an email. Yeah.
But the studio looks good. But a couple of the things, and this is just for just the listeners to kind of, if they want to kind of listen to some other podcasts. The Fire Inside with John Sanders. It's a firefighters podcast. We're actually going to have him on as a guest sometime in the near future. First Responders Wealth Network. That was pretty cool. I thought it was a podcast about first responders doing. You guys are always doing extra jobs or having a side
Details,
hustle going.
Right.
So that's what that's about.
Nice.
There's also a First Responders Tribe podcast. It's for spouses and families of first responders, which was really cool.
Very important.
And this woman kind of, you got to listen to it. It's called First Responders Tribe. I love it. It's a great podcast.
Right.
Rescue to Rescuer. Our next guest, or guest today, was on that podcast, and I thought that was bar none one of the best podcasts. And Behind the Badge was a cool one, because the reason why I picked that one to kind of tell you guys about, because it's a little different. It's stories about police officers. It's wellness. It's, they were telling me stories, telling me, see, it's how these podcasts work. They were talking about, the police, they had a police officer on, and he was telling some stories about DUI stops and, how they had fun with it. And, so I heard the other side of it. So
you got to laugh.
Yeah, you do got to laugh. So, and I know you, Mike, with your stories, excuse me. You love telling those. So I love listening to your stories, and I know everybody out there loves listening. So I'm going to ask you for a story right now.
Right now.
It's story time. So I'm going to give you a topic.
Give me a topic.
You're gonna have to dig back.
I have a good story in my mind, but give me a topic.
Well, all right. If you want to tell us your story, you can. I was going to ask you about DUI stops or DWI stops.
This is a DWI stop. All right. So there's a couple of colleges in Lowell. University of Massachusetts in Lowell, good sized school. It used to be called Lowell Technological Institute. Very, very well known school. High end school for people in engineering. People come from all over the world. But so there's quite a bit of foot traffic coming from the college to go downtown. The city of Lowell is actually an island. You can't get to downtown Lowell without going over a body of water.
I didn't
Correct.
know. Okay.
Yep. And Lowell was a huge industrial city back in the 1800s because of the water power from the Merrimack River that comes from New Hampshire. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So my captain had told myself and another patrolman that I work with, there was a lot of speeders running the red lights up at the University of Lowell to go up there and, just monitor traffic and, stop cars, give them tickets if they're going through red lights or yellow and red lights. So just to slow everybody down. Mm-hmm. People see the police presence. Usually if they travel that way, they'll keep it in mind.
Yeah.
So my theory's always been, if you go through a light that's just turning yellow, I do that myself. I'm not going to stop you unless you're flying, going really fast. Well, we had a red light, and all of a sudden it turned green. So I knew that anybody coming either way, left or right, was going to be going through a red light. And sure enough, here comes a car right through the red light. So I throw the lights on, we go after, and it's a minivan. Mm-hmm. And it didn't stop right away. It took about, 30 seconds for the driver to realize that we were behind him. We're hitting the siren, going about 45 miles an hour. And finally the driver pulls over. And as I walk up, it's a woman. I thought it was a woman. Had a dress on, a wig, and it was a guy about the size of Sweets. He was all decked out in his evening, this was back in the 80s, his evening attire. And so he had been drinking. I had him get out of the car, and he had high heels on.
Oh, geez.
And if you ever see hairy legs with high heels, it's just not that attractive, So
he was being himself, as we would say now.
He was being, back then he was being more than himself. Now I guess it wouldn't be concerned, but back then it was just a little. Yeah. Make a long story short, he couldn't do the hand to nose test. He couldn't do the eye stare test. He couldn't do the stand on one leg test by no means, even without the heels. So he was arrested. We had to bring him to the station, and the sad part about this is his wife had to come bail him out.
Oh no.
And his change of clothes was in the van that we towed.
Oh no.
So he had to come upstairs with his purple dress, holding his heels and his wig. And I just had to stand back and wait to see the look on this poor woman's face when she saw her big burly husband coming up.
Oh no.
Dressed in probably her clothes, because she was a good sized woman too. So that's one story.
So the wife had no idea that he was
None.
transvestite.
What is this about? She asked him, and it was before Halloween, so he couldn't say he was out trick or treating.
and we don't by no means want to put down the LGBT community.
Absolutely not.
We love everybody. Matter of fact, on our other show, we had the LGBT community on with us, but that's just a story. Back in the 80s, unfortunately, it wasn't accepted back then.
Right. If you're offended, well, you know what? Maybe you should get a little bit of help, because life is life, and that's just the way it is.
Exactly. We're friends with everybody.
Right.
Straight, gay, whatever. You name it. Black, white, we love them all. So,
that's correct.
And that's what this show is about. So, well, what's going on today?
Well,
like our guest-wise.
Had a good day. Looks like we have a pretty good guest today. Andy Kaufmann. Not the Andy Kaufmann, but I guess he probably hears that a lot.
I'm sure he does.
Andy is the co-founder of Checkpoint One, as you know. He was a paramedic and served in the U.S. Army for over 20 years as a helicopter pilot, flying Huey-1s. Wow, good for you. And as well as the armed, I guess it's a OH-58D. Kowal? I'm not sure.
Well, I think we're going to bring him on so he can explain.
Why don't we just do that?
Why don't I go ahead and bring on Andy?
Well, what I do like, I just want to say he had multiple deployments all around the world, and Veterans Day is coming up soon. So let me thank you for your service, Andy, and welcome.
Welcome,
hey,
Andy.
Thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it. And I have no idea I'm going to follow up with that story that you told. So I'm kind of at a loss.
We love hearing stories. All our viewers love these stories here. So welcome to the show, Andy. And it's good to have you. I heard you on another podcast. And I believe it was your wife that you had on the other podcast?
No, actually, so that was Kristen Fitzgerald, and she is a co-founder here. And sometimes we get mistaken for that work wife. But it's all good.
Your work wife. But it was a good podcast, and let's hope we can do half as good here with you as that. So, so tell us a little bit about what you do at Checkpoint One.
So Checkpoint One, just to give you a quick synopsis of what we do, we're a nonprofit. We just hit our 3-year anniversary the other day, and we are a non-riding equine assisted therapy program, and we do yoga, mindfulness, meditation, other kind of nature infused stuff for any status, first responder, military, and their immediate families. So we have a 33-acre farm. We have 15 equines now, 13 horses and 2 donkeys. And 4 of the horses are wild Mustangs that we just got for a big gentling program that we're doing over Veterans Day weekend for first responder and military and some caregivers.
Wow, great. And so what's the difference between equines and horses?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Because you said you had 15 and 4 or something.
Well, I meant so we've got 15 total equines of all of those 2 are donkeys.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm the ass in the whole place. So exactly how does this program work? I did attend an equine, a professionals day one time, and I kind of got it, but I kind of didn't get it. Is that normal at first for people not to understand what, like, this big horse and me, and how am I what's this gonna do for me?
That's almost the typical way that people approach this, even horse people, because they have, horse people, especially first responders or not, they have, they know horses, they ride horses, they try to control horses. Well, the difference with what we do is the horses, we don't teach horsemanship, and we allow the horses to basically be free and be themselves. So they're either, if the weather's crappy outside, we've got them inside in stalls. If not, they're outside in large runs or pastures. And it's hard to explain, but basically we allow the person to meet all of if it's their first time, they come in, we usually BS for a little bit, and then we go let them introduce themselves to the horses from outside the fence. Once they've introduced themselves to the horses, we might ask them, is there any horse in particular? And it's kind of funny. Some of the really big guys, We have some mini horses, so they want to go in with the mini horses, and some of the smaller guys want to go in with the big horses, and I don't know if it's a Napoleon complex thing or whatever it is. But so everybody, and we've got, there's different colors, their sizes, their genders. So they pick a horse, and regardless of if they have horse experience, we afford them the opportunity to go in with the horse. A lot of times when folks come here, they think they're coming for just a reason. Like, they were on a horrible call where they had to pull a dead child out of a car or a building or whatever. So they think that's their motive for coming to us. Maybe one of their peers says, "Hey dude, you need to go see somebody or go somewhere." So they come here. And what eventually happens, and with almost every single person that we see, yes, that experience, that trauma that they had is the impetus for them getting here, but it's built on how they were raised as a child. Maybe they were sexually abused or beaten or whatever, and that has built up. So their baseline for trauma understanding and ability to deal with it is already high from when they're a kid.
Yeah.
And they've hit that point where something snaps and they need the assistance. And one of the things that I tell the guys and gals all the time is the Tupperware effect. And it's where, all of the crap that you've dealt with over your life, whether it's in your profession, your personal life, whatever, you stack it away in your brain in Tupperware. And, we're first responders, military, we're really good at putting that wall up and keeping all that crap behind so you don't have to think about it. Your job is automatic and you do it. And all the bullshit that you see is stuck into these Tupperwares. An event, a smell, a sight, your wife saying something, your husband saying something, makes those Tupperwares basically explode. And they spill out all onto the ground in front of you in no order. They're all in chaos. And what we do through the horses is allow them to see all of this chaos in front of them, put them back into manageable piles, investigate and understand the stuff that happened to them in each one of these piles, put them back into the Tupperware and put them back into their head, and then teach them tools to recognize the effects of, anxiety or stress coming on. And they can, go back into that Tupperware file drawer and pull, section A, paragraph 3, line 107 and say, I understand. And we teach them breathing techniques and all sorts of things. So like when they go into the horses, if they're all spooled up, we might pull them out and teach them 4-7-8 breathing, for instance, just to get them to settle a little bit, because the horses respond a lot to how a person is energetically. And that's a whole different scientific topic that I won't bore you with.
Well, real quick, talk about what do you mean horses respond? Like, do they run away? Do they, respond how? Like, I know Mr. Ed would respond by saying Wilbur, but these horses, I'm guessing that you have don't talk, right?
they don't talk verbally, but they have a lot of body language. But So horses have, they're a prey animal, and to horses, humans are the predator. They have 3 modes: fight, flight, or freeze. So when somebody comes in, and again, it depends on the horse and there's a whole kind of factors that take into consideration. But if somebody comes in all agitated, a horse may have absolutely nothing to do with them. And because the horses they're not bridled up, they're not, hooked up to a fence post or anything, they're most of the time their response is to just move away. And they've got they've got space to do that. Now, if somebody goes up to a horse, and the space between their congruencies is off. Like, let's say, they come in, they're like, I really love, or I'm terrified of horses. Big horses scare the crap out of me. And they go in with this big horse, they're still saying it and they're still rubbing this horse. That's incongruency. And the horse can sense that. And the horse may give a vocal cue, a body cue, ear cue, eye cue, something that the client may not see, but myself and Kristen and our mental health professional, Mary Margaret, may pick up on. And if it looks like the horse is going to react versus respond, we'll kind of make a suggestion to maybe, move away or redirect the conversation a little bit. But it's a lot of our sessions are silent. A client will go in and stand with a horse for 45 minutes and not say a word. And the horse may rest his shoulder or his head on their shoulder, or, breathe in their face, or just something. And they will have the client will have like an aha moment, like, holy crap, this horse is just like my wife before, or after my father passed away. He was consoling and this and that. So we let one of the big things that we do here is allow the client to have their own solution. We don't tell them where their journey is going, and we meet them where they're at when they get here. So going back to my example of somebody coming here that, had just, pulled a child out of a burning building or whatever, they may be driving behind a lady that's going 35 miles an hour and swerving all over the road. And it's raising their anger and their angst that their window of tolerance is closing, and they get here, and that's what the immediate thing is. Mm-hmm. So we'll take that through the horses and talk about how, where does that anger, that fear and sadness stem from that made you get all, pissed off at this lady and this and that. So we take every avenue that's available to us, and sometimes we don't pursue it because, again, it's not about our agenda and our feeling better about helping somebody. Mm-hmm. It's about allowing the individual to find a solution, and we prompt and help them move forward, taking, the struggles that they've had and turn them into strength and move forward.
Andy, in Andover, Massachusetts, right next to Lowell, there's a woman, Dee Dee O'Brien, and I grew up around horses with Dee Dee. Dee Dee's a little bit older than me. I hope she doesn't see this, but so she started a program with veterans. Well, actually, the program started with children with maladies like cancer and from Children's Hospital, and she has, I think, about 10 horses, and she expanded the program. I was the EAP for the Lowell Police, so she expanded the program for veterans. I was also belonged to an organization called VAV, Veterans Assistant Veterans. So we would take war veterans with PTSD, and she has this program, very similar, I imagine. And what I knew as a young boy about horses, I learned how to bridle them, saddle them, groom them, feed them, take care of them and be around them. And that, which was very important because, like you say, they're huge, strong animals, and you got to be careful. But what I saw, she had a program that you would be there for the week, for 5 days. You would stay Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and by Tuesday, you'd have a connection with one of the horses, and come back the following week, and then they would have a discussion for 2 days. And it was I don't know how to say it. I'm a clinical social worker as well, so I work with people doing cognitive therapy, but these people would get so much out of getting the trust from horses, who are very smart, very intuitive. Horses know if you're afraid or if you're aggressive. They just sense it. Like you say, they're animals of prey. But these horses that she had were so used to being with young children, and I think they felt comfortable. So getting a horse that was comfortable to begin with really was an added plus.
Mike, we're going to take a quick break here. And we'll be back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the program and how it works a little bit more in detail. And we'll be back right after these words.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. The First Responder Recovery Program at Genesis House is led by a doctorate-level therapist with direct professional experience as a first responder himself. Treatment modalities focus on psychiatric care, relapse prevention, stress management, and trauma-informed care for PTSD. Learn why their individualized approach makes a difference for first responders. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, welcome back, Friends in Recovery podcast, answering the call, and I'm here with Jersey Ed. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and we have a really special guest today, Andy Kaufmann.
Yep.
He's a veteran and helicopter pilot, and he's got a lot of other interesting stuff he does too.
And he owns Checkpoint One.
He does.
And we want to find out how did you start all this Checkpoint One and start working with horses? Were you a horse kind of person before all this?
So my horse riding, or my horse experience up to when I started Checkpoint One, was riding ponies in Rock Creek Park in DC. So no,
Okay.
not a horse professional. Unlike my co-founder and our mental health professional, who have like 30 years each on doing stuff with horses. So I, after I got back from Iraq and my injuries, and I had a bunch of operations, had to learn how to walk again a couple times. We were in upstate New York, moved down to Virginia, pulled my wife and kids out of their environment that they'd grown up in the military. I had entered the VA system when I got down here to Virginia. And in some instances, it's a lot like the EAP program, where it's either good or it's not. They had me on about 25 different meds, from hydrocodone, hydromorphine, fentanyl, antidepressants, anxiety, just the whole 9 yards. And I was basically gray. Got to a point where my wife basically said, get help or get out. I had crossed that line of whether or not I was going to commit suicide, and thankfully decided not to, because I did want to see my kids and my wife and my family, and be a grandpa someday. So I was on a train ride. I finally got a job up in DC. Was on a train ride home. One of my good friends in the Army called me up, was having a horrible time. Wife and kids were screaming in the background, told me he had a gun. And he was my buddy. I'd known him for more than 20 years. And I couldn't talk him down, and he ended up killing himself while I was on the phone.
Oh God, on the phone.
When I got home, pretty much disassociated, was sleeping in the closet with my dog for about a week, went back to work. And when I went back to work, had the chance to meet Josh Goldberg, who was working for an organization called Boulder Crest Retreat up in Bluemont, Virginia. It's a 7-day program for combat veterans. They've now introduced it to first responders. That's where I was introduced to this kind of sort of model to horses. And after I finished that program, which that program basically saved my life and put me on a path forward to better myself and give back in honor of my friends that have died or killed themselves, or that sort of thing. And I basically woke up dreaming about horses, not in the biblical sense, but just something to do with horses. So I got integrated into a program near my house that is a riding program for kids with autism and other family issues. But every time I was around the horses, I was calm. And it grew and grew until I was working at 4 different barns. And I was introduced to Kristen, who started teaching me this natural horsemanship side of things, the body language, how they talk to each other, herd dynamics. And it spiraled out of control as far as my love of horses. And I built a farm at my house. And we said, we need to do something for veterans, because that's the tribe that I was familiar with. She's married to a former Marine. And as we continue to move forward, we needed a mental health professional. She's married to a firefighter. So that introduced us into the firefighter community, where we got integrated into helping develop peer support programs. And basically it exploded from there. And, like I said, we just crossed over 300 clients this year.
Wow,
we have 47 active clients. We're doing this Mustang gentling program over Veterans Day weekend. So I love absolutely every aspect of what I do. It's about a 30-40 minute ride from my house. It's not on any highway, and it gives me time to, center myself on the ride here. And then on the ride home, all of the stuff that I've heard from the guys and gals that come here, I'm able to let that pass through and understand. It works, within my own dynamics of my stuff.
You can say shit.
My shit and how I process it. So, we teach people, a lot about processing and holding space for other people and responding versus reacting and breathing. And it's just, if something doesn't work for somebody, all we do is ask them to tell us, hey, what you showed me is a bunch of crap. Teach me something else. And we do. And I love every aspect. I teach, I'm a yoga instructor. I teach down at the VA. I go to the local fire stations and police departments. They come out here for classes in addition to individually as clients. So that was a long answer to a short question.
No, that was a good answer.
Good. Yeah, I said it right
there. A real
there.
good answer.
Yeah.
It's good. I think in order to, my opinion, I'm a recovering alcoholic. To be able to help people, you have to have been there, I believe. There are some great doctors out there that have never probably had a drink, and they can do great work.
Oh, yeah.
Therapists too. But I think in your case, especially being a veteran, being a pilot, you're going to get the respect that you so much deserve. But to have a friend so close commit suicide, and as we know, suicide is like the common cold for veterans.
Yeah.
And there's so many veterans every day just killing themselves because they can't deal with the post-traumatic stress that they get
Absolutely.
brought back, you know,
Yeah.
and someone like yourself should definitely be lauded. Wow, what a great story.
Yeah. Now, Andy, real quick, obviously first responders, veterans, that's the population you're working with.
Oh, was that a question?
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
normal
so we-
civilians won't come.
He's from New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm from Jersey.
Yeah,
So.
I know. I'm sorry, man. What exit? But anyway, we work with any status military, first responders, and their immediate families. Now, early on when we were starting, we were seeing people outside, individual clients outside of our population because we had the ability to do it.
Mhm.
Now we just have so many that we can't.
Great.
We don't really sway outside of that lane.
Good.
Now we see groups that are local businesses, and we do equine assisted learning with them. Because we need an income from something.
Yes.
So we do charge money for that, but all of our services for our population are at no cost, no insurance requirements. You don't have to go through TRICARE or, whatever. So it's completely under the radar. We're bound by the same HIPAA laws that anybody else is in any therapeutic environment.
Wow.
And because we are a small community here, we are very cognizant of that fact that it's small. And when we run into people in the stores, we don't go out of our way to say hi. If they want to come up and say hi, that's great. But I love every single one of them, and they've each got their own unique story. And and I'm honored to be able to be able to provide them the space to tell their stories to me and to Kristen and to Mary Margaret. So.
What now, real quick, do you have a money tree in the backyard?
Do you get any funding?
Yeah. How does this program funding if it's all free? How does it work?
Right now we are our existence has been basically run off of individual donations. We do have some individuals that have given $5,000, $10,000. That has kept us going. And right now, since we just crossed over our 3-year mark, we're trying to enter into the grant world and really get some money. But we're a nonprofit and we have been through some struggles, but all three of us have said, regardless of whether we have money or not, it's going to continue.
Right.
And we're going to make it work one way or the other.
Right. There are some great grant writers out there. They're hard to find sometimes, but with technology the way it is nowadays, you can go online and believe me, there are grants. There is money available for these different programs.
Absolutely. Now, how can they get a hold of you if your first responders are listening and they want to come to your program? How would they go about that? And also, how can we donate too?
So if you want to, we have a Facebook page, Checkpoint One, and it has a little donate button on there. We have a web page. It's www.checkpointone.org, and it's Checkpoint One spelled O-N-E, not the number. And there's a whole story behind that one, but you guys could probably figure that out. You can donate through there. You can send PayPal direct to info@checkpointone.org. And that's also how you can reach out to us. I am info@checkpointone.
Okay.
So what we do for people that want to come here, and we're not just local to this area. If somebody wants to come to us from California, we're not going to pay for their ticket to come out here yet. But if they can get out here, we have done 2 and 3 day intensive programs for individuals that really need it. And they usually, what happens is they'll come out for a tour. It takes about an hour. They get to hear my full story and Kristen and Mary Margaret's. We show them the property, and we're vetting them as much as they're vetting us. And we leave it at that. We leave the option up to them. If they want to come, great. We understand shift work, so we're flexible as far as the time and biweekly or every week or whatever that we see people. We recommend an 8-week, once a week for 8-week program. And recognizing the schedule that may stretch out longer or shorter. We have clients that have stayed with the program now for almost 3 years. They don't come every week, but they come maybe once a month or once every other month just to check out.
Like a tune-up, yeah.
Yeah. And
now, is there a long-term, not a long-term, is there like a 5-day program like Mike was talking about, or is there something more intense that you can do as far as that goes?
We don't have a facility where somebody can stay, which is a long range plan is to have like a cabin or 2 cabins here where people can stay. But right now, if somebody wants to come for like a 2 or 3 day program, we can coordinate that, but we don't have any specific programs like that. Our Mustang Gentling program is a 3-day program. We just, the biggest issue we have right now is it is just the 3 of us. And without another team to supplement the individual clients doing a 3 or 5 day program. Right now it's not in the works, but in the future, that's definitely something that we want to be able to do and offer.
Great.
Super.
Great. Wow.
Well, Andy, it's a very, very interesting podcast. So glad you came on as a guest.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure we'll be speaking to you again. That's for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. I wish we had another 2 hours with you to really get into detail, but all this information will be in the show notes that you were just speaking about. So anybody watching or listening, just go to the show notes and you'll be able to get a hold of Andy. And I highly recommend it. It's just been, I've heard just good things about your program, and thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks. Wow, that was interesting.
Boy, interesting. Talk about enlightening. And people that give back, someone like this who gives back right from the heart, it's just amazing. And
he's a humble man. He's just thankful for what life has given him.
Right.
It sounds like life has thrown a lot of curveballs at him, but he's thankful for it, and he's making other first responders understand too. You don't have to live that way. That's what it sounds like to me.
Less than 1% of society gets involved in the armed services, and people like him keep this country safe, and they shouldn't have to go through all these struggles. And especially when he has a program like this to save lives, there should be money available, and I'm sure there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anybody's out there listening, anybody has any contacts or understanding of any type of grants or grant writers, feel free to contact us, Friends in Recovery Podcast, answering the call.
So just get a hold of us on our email at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, or even, get on our Facebook. Make sure you like us on the Facebook and all that. One thing I do want to talk about before we sign off here, Mike, is our founder of Genesis House, Tony Dodge, was a huge horse guy.
Right.
And he had horses, it was a family thing that he did. And whenever Tony got around the horses, I noticed a difference in him. Very calming, very, he had race horses, which is a little bit different than what Andy was talking about. But when we went down to the stables to see his horses, he was just he was a very humble person, but he was just calm and relaxed. And it was just wonderful to see how people change around horses, and that's without even a program like what Andy was talking about. So
interesting stuff.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yep, absolutely.
Good show, Ed.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Well, we're appreciative for everybody that's that comes on here, and appreciate you helping out also, Mike.
My pleasure.
So, but
and sweets. Don't forget sweets.
Sweets. That's right. We always forget about it. How you doing back there, Sweets?
Doing fantastic. Just enjoying this episode, listening to, the equine therapy. I actually did, like you mentioned, a professional weekend where I got to participate in it. And it was eye-opening in a number of different ways. I mean, from watching how people respond, like Andy was talking about, we all got in a circle around this horse, and there was probably 12 of us, and everybody walked up to the horse, and there was a measured response from the horse, and it was different for everybody. I mean, everything from, the horse stepped back a little bit for somebody that might be more assertive. So like myself, when I walked up to the horse, it, got kind of rigid. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the horse would get really comfortable. One woman walked up and she was an empath, and the horse got a little turned on, which, was, and you could see all these different responses. And it was just really, it was eye-opening, because I didn't, like Andy was saying, and you were saying, I didn't know how to approach a horse yet. I had worked on horse farms when I was younger, but in that situation where it was designed for that purpose, I didn't know how to walk up and respond. So,
absolutely.
Seeing that, a lot of these folks are dealing with a variety of different embedded or imprinted traumas that maybe they're not even aware of, or they're not even aware of how it's emanating off of them and stuff like that. It was really nice to hear that there's something out there where it's focused around that. Yeah, so I was just listening. I was enthralled. It was great.
I was too. He did a great job.
He did. The one thing that fascinated me about everything is not fascinated, but what Andy was speaking about is that these first responders are going there because they're thinking, okay, well, this specific incident that happened to me in a car accident, and I'm sure you've seen all these, Mike, the car accidents and whatever, the dead bodies, the kids, whatever. They think they're going there for that.
Right.
And like I said in past shows that, we all have trauma. We all have some form of trauma, but you guys are compounded by it. That you guys have to walk into these trauma situations and do your job. But this sounds like the horse thing can really dig even deeper into what some of that, maybe that childhood trauma was.
Right.
You know, it could be for anything from molestation to maybe whatever it is, you know, when you're
Sure.
younger. So,
Sure.
you know, and it's tough. Have you ever been around horses like that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was a young boy, 9 years old, there was a gentleman down the street. His name was Ralph Hoare, and he had an oil company, and he used to have sulky horses that did harness racing, and he'd take old retired horses, and he just had a love for them. And he was a sulky driver as a young guy and a motorcycle. He was like way ahead of his time, but he'd let us ride the horses. But first we had to clean the stalls. We had to water the horses, feed the horses, groom the horses, get the trust of the horses, learn how to bridle them, learn how to saddle them safely. We used to watch the blacksmith would come every 2 months or so, and he'd shoe them, and then different shoes for the winter. It was just an interesting place to be as a kid. And I always attribute my love of animals to Mr. Hoare. He had homing pigeons as well.
Oh, wow.
We'd take pigeons 50 miles away in a coop, travel coop, let them go, and by the time we get back to the farm, the pigeons would be there. It was just interesting, you know? Good stuff.
Yeah, animals are amazing.
Sure.
So.
Well, listen, this was a great show. Ed, and I appreciate you bringing Andy Kaufmann. What a great find, you know?
Yeah.
And I hope everyone out there can join us for further episodes by subscribing and help us spread the word by sharing across social media. And a special thank you to Genesis House for making this possible, along with our producer, Sweets, and the Sweets Podcast Studio here in Beverly, Massachusetts, for recording and broadcasting. Yes, for recording and broadcasting this podcast.
That's right. And Mike, and if you have any questions you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you want to submit any questions or topics for discussion for the show, visit our Facebook page, Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast. You can find it at, or you can send an email to me at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.
As always, we are grateful for the privilege to share our stories and insight with you, the listener.
And stay safe, everybody.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting our first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.